Yaśodānandana Vraja Janaranjana Yaśodānandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Sham Sundar Radha Sham Sundar Radhe Jayo Krishna Balarāma Krishna Balarāma Krishna Balarāma Jayo Krishna Balarāma Jayo Gauranitai, 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 Jayo Gauranitai. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adigaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 65, Text 2. This text is spoken by Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Pariṣvaktaś cirotkaṇṭhair gopair gopībhir evacha rāmo bhivādya pitarāv āśīrbhir abhinanditaḥ pariṣvaktaś cirotkaṇṭhair gopair gopībhir evacha rāmo bhivādya pitarāv āśīrbhir abhinanditaḥ. Pariṣvaktaś cirotkaṇṭhair. Gopair gopībhir evacha. Rāmo bhivādya pitarāv. āśīrbhir abhinanditaḥ.
pariṣvaktaś cirotkaṇṭhair. gopair gopībhir evacha. rāmo bhivādya pitarau. āśīrbhir abhinanditaḥ.
Matajis? Pariṣvaktaḥ, embraced. Cira, for a long time. Utkaṇṭhaiḥ, who had been in anxiety. Gopaiḥ, by the cowherd men. Gopībhir, by the cowherd women. Eva, indeed. Cha, also. Rāmaḥ, Lord Balarāma. Abhivādya, offering respects. Pitarau, to his parents. Nanda and Yaśodā. āśīrbhir, with prayers. Abhinanditaḥ, joyfully greeted. Translation. Having long suffered the anxiety of separation, the cowherd men and their wives embraced Lord Balarāma. The Lord then offered respect to his parents, and they joyfully greeted him with prayers. We can repeat together. Having long suffered the anxiety of separation, the cowherd men and their wives embraced Lord Balarāma. The Lord then offered respects to his parents, and they joyfully greeted him with prayers. Purport. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī gives the following verse regarding this situation. Nityananda svarupopi prema tapto vrajokasham jayo krishnam api tvaktva yastam ramam muhu stumaha. Let us repeatedly glorify Lord Balarāma. Although he is the original personality of eternal bliss, Nityananda, he felt pained by his love for the residents of Braja, and thus he went to see them, even at the cost of leaving Lord Krishna. Om Jnane Timrandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svatadaktikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Harigaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're just embarking upon this beautiful new chapter entitled Lord Balarāma Visits Vrindavan. We can note that this is the first time that Balarāma is leaving the side of Krishna throughout the Krishna Leela. Always they've been together since their birth. Balarāma, although he is originally the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, because he was transferred to the womb of Rohini, and Rohini was sent secretly to take shelter at the home of Nanda Maharaj and Yaśodā, Rohini gave birth to Balarāma there in Braja, in the home of Nanda Maharaj. So Balarāma, his entire life, childhood, was spent in the home of Nanda Maharaj. Soon after Krishna appeared, and together they spent their entire childhood together, inseparable. And Krishna, throughout his pastimes, he would praise Balarāma. For instance, after the killing of Dhenukasura, he explained to Balarāma, you just see how these trees, they're offering their fruits and flowers to you, bending down. The bees, everything in Braja is glorifying you because you're the Supreme Lord. So Krishna and Balarāma had a very close, inseparable relationship throughout their pastimes, from Vrindavan, then on to Mathura, where they killed Kamsa. Balarāma killed Kamsa's brothers. And then, working together, while Balarāma protected Mathura, Krishna then was able to eradicate Kalyavana. And finally, Krishna and Balarāma, they left because Jarasandha's constant attacks, and they came to the fort of Dwarka together. So at no time were they separated. But Balarāma, he deeply understood the sufferings of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And therefore, while they were in Dwarka, Krishna also, he desperately wanted to return to Vrindavan. He never wanted to leave Vrindavan. But out of duty to his parents, because they were suffering, at the plea of Akrura, he came, killed Kamsa, protected the Yadav dynasty, and brought his relatives to Dwarka to live. But always in his heart, he wanted to return to Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj, he had instructed Krishna that now you stay with Vasudeva and Devaki. They have suffered throughout your entire childhood, not being able to take part in your childhood pastimes. So you give them some pleasure. So even Nanda Maharaj recommended to Krishna that he should stay with Vasudeva and Devaki, his parents. Vasudeva and Devaki, we had heard in the previous sloka, they feared that if they would allow Krishna to return to Braja, because of the intense love that the gopis, the gopas, and Krishna's parents, Nanda and Maharaj, had for him, because Krishna is so much affected by love, he goes wherever his devotees are. They feared that if they allowed him to go to Braj, he would never come back again to Dwarka. They would lose him. So therefore, at this time, now when is this time? Because Sukadeva Goswami, he doesn't always speak in chronological order. He speaks according to his bhav, what his emotions are, how he's remembering Krishna's pastimes, as he's speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. So later during the conversation of Nanda Maharaj and Balarāma, Nanda Maharaj, he understands that Krishna cannot return to Vrindavan until all the demons have been killed. Because so long as there are demons trying to kill Krishna, if Krishna returns to Vrindavan, they will then come to Vrindavan and they will cause havoc to the cows and the simple cowherd people of Braja. Because they didn't have any forts, they didn't have any ramparts, they had nothing to protect them. So therefore, in order to protect the Brajabasis, Krishna, he cut off all relationships with them so that the demons would not come and give trouble to the Brijbasis. So Nanda Maharaj, he asked Balarāma, how many demons are remaining? And Balarāma replied to him that, well, now you know that Kamsa has been killed, and also Narakasura has been killed. So from that point of time, we can understand that Krishna already has at least 3 wives. That's Rukmini, Jambavati, and Satyabhama, because Narakasura was killed in the association of Satyabhama. That means Balarāma is also married. There are also children at that time in Krishna's homes. So we're very much into the Dwarka Leela when Balarāma, remembering how the Brijbasis have been suffering separation from Krishna particularly, he wants to return to Braja and give some pleasure to his mother and father, Nanda and Yaśodā, and to all of the cowherd men and cowherd women. So he's crying. He's there with Krishna in Dwarka. And it's described that the tears are coming down his cheeks. They're going down to his neck even. And he says to Krishna, I don't understand what your plan is. You know how much Nanda Maharaj and Yaśodā are suffering in separation from you. All of the cows, all the cowherd men, cowherd women, they're simply breathing with the hope because you promised that you would return. When will you come back to Braj? So Krishna, he answered. He said, I want to come back, but Vasudeva and Devaki will not give me permission. So then Balarāma decided he would go to Vasudeva and Devaki and ask permission. So he went to them. He said, please give permission that Krishna and I return to Braja for some time, just to give some pleasure to Nanda and Yaśodā. Vasudeva and Devaki, understanding the intense love that the Brijbasis had for Krishna, they replied, you can go back. We do not give permission to Krishna to return to Braja at this time. So, although Balarāma was the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, he criticized them. That how can you keep Nanda and Yaśodā suffering like this? You know how much they're suffering. Please allow Krishna to come with me. They wouldn't give permission. So Balarāma came back and told Krishna what the decision was. And Krishna gave his blessings. Yes, you go back to Braj and you console all of the gopas and the gopis, my mother and my father, and you assure them that I have promised to return. I will certainly return. You tell them that first I sent Uddhava. Uddhava is a saintly Brahmin. He's the disciple of Brihaspati. And I sent him with the message that as soon as my work is finished, I will return to Braja. Do you think that Uddhava would lie? Now I'm sending you, Balarāma. You are one of the Brijbasis yourself. You grew up there. And I'm sending you with the same message that yes, I will return. Would you lie to the Brijbasis? I've sent so many messengers in between, assuring everyone that as soon as the work of killing the demons is complete, I will certainly return to Vrindavan forever. So this is the message that Krishna was giving to Balarāma to give to the Brijbasis when he reached there. And he gave Balarāma particular instructions. He said, because the demons are still rampant, you have to go in a different dress. You can't go so that people know that Balarāma is going to Vrindavan, because that will endanger the Brijbasis. The demons will follow you. You have to change your dress. You have to go alone, very swiftly, on only one chariot. And then when you reach the borders of Braja, you change your dress and you become just like at that, here in Braj, the people dress in a particular way. You dress exactly like the Brijbasis, and then you enter Braj. So Balarāma did exactly what Krishna said. But before he left, he asked Krishna that, you know how much the gopis are suffering. Don't you have any special message that I can give to them? So Krishna himself, he was very heartbroken that he couldn't go with Balarāma. And he narrated to Uddhava a special message. Not just one message for each one of the gopis, because each one of the gopis he had different relationships with. So he gave different messages that Uddhava referred then to Balarāma, and Balarāma was going to give all these messages to the gopis. So now, at this sloka 2, the cowherd men and their wives, when they saw that Balarāma had reached the premises of Braja, and we have to remember, Braja is very big, 84 square miles. Braja encompasses parts of Rajasthan, parts of Haryana, parts of UP. It's a very big area. Balarāma was coming from what is now Gujarat. So he probably came where Rajasthan touches Gujarat. He entered there, and as soon as the Brijbasis saw Balarāma, they all surrounded him. And it says here that both the cowherd men and their wives embraced Balarāma. And the word gopi, the gopas and the gopis, they both embraced Balarāma. So there's a question that arises, because all throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, even from the earlier cantos, the word gopi is used. We know the word gopa. Go means the cows, and pa comes from palan, one who protects the cows. And the gopis, they're the females who they also, although they don't go out and herd the cows, they don't engage in the cow protection as the men do. What they do is, the job of the gopis is, they take the milk products and they turn those milk products into ghee, into so many different delectable offerings for Krishna, for the yagyas. So this is their service as gopis. And the gopis are of many different categories. There are elder gopis, such as Mother Yaśodā, and the gopis here who embrace Krishna. These were the elder gopis who were the ages of Mother Yaśodā. They, without any embarrassment whatsoever, seeing Balarāma just like their child, they embraced Balarāma along with their husbands. They all surrounded him. This word here, pariṣvaktaḥ, it can mean surrounding, it can mean encircling, and it can also mean embracing. So they also embraced him, the elderly gopis. Now there are other types of gopis as well, because we can remember in the pastime of the killing of Shankachura. This was the holy time. Now this pastime is taking place during the months of Chaitra and Vaishak. And here in Braj, if we look on our calendar, we see that the day of Vasant Panchami is full of festivals, because that's the beginning of spring. And after a long winter here in Braj, where it's cold and we are suffering from the cold, when Vasant Panchami comes, we're rejoicing because it's springtime. So Krishna, he became very restless at that time. And although he was going every day to herd the cows as a young boy with his friends, he just couldn't concentrate on his cow herding anymore. And Nanda Maharaj could understand that once this Vasant Panchami arrived. So he gave permission for Krishna to give up his cow herding and just enjoy with his friends and engage in the holy festival of spring. And at that time, they would wander, and the gopis and the gopas together, they would enjoy for 45 days until Gaur Purnima, until the holy Purnima. They would enjoy holy together, going from village to village, because this spring fever, this restlessness, Nanda Maharaj understood that these children, they have to have time to play. But then here in Braj, although it's a national holiday, everyone takes off one day in the year in the whole country, and they go wild. There are no restrictions. They can enjoy as much as they want with their family and their friends. But it doesn't end here in Vrindavan. It goes on beyond the holy Purnima. And from village to village, Krishna and the gopis and the gopas, they go, and you can follow them, village to village. They go and enjoy holy together for as long as they can. So they extend this enjoyment of holy and enjoying the spring festival together here in Braj. So during that time, when Krishna and Balarāma were physically present, they were enjoying this Chaitra and Vaishak months before it gets very hot. And one night, they were in the forest enjoying with the gopis. And Krishna has his gopis, his beloveds. And Balarāma has his gopis. Now, who are these gopis of Balarāma? When Krishna called the gopis with his flute to engage in the Rasa Leela, the gopis his age, they came and they enjoyed with him. But all the gopis aren't the same age. They're little gopis, they're older gopis, so many different gopis. So the gopis who were too young to take part in the Rasa Leela, they were the gopis who Balarāma accepted as his beloveds. A completely different set of gopis. And they loved Balarāma in the same mood that Krishna's beloved gopis loved him. And they enjoyed with him during this Shankhachuda festival, when Krishna killed Shankhachuda, and then they had the holy festival together. So Balarāma, again we come back to the word gopi. There are different gopis. The gopis that are going to discuss with Balarāma in this chapter, because on the first day, when Balarāma enters Braja, and the elderly gopis and the gopas, they embrace him, they welcome him, and then Balarāma has to come some distance. Imagine you're coming from Kamyavan, over in Rajasthan, you're coming all the way, you have to come to Nandagaon to meet Nanda Maharaj and Yaśodā. It takes some time. So everyone was greeting and embracing and encircling Balarāma as he was moving forward to Nandagram. And then finally, Nanda Maharaj, Yaśodā, they receive word that Balarāma has come. He sends them a message. And they come out to greet him with tears, with embraces, with blessings. The word here, āśīrbhir, like we have the word āśīrvad. Blessings, they're blessing him. And they're greeting him so joyfully. Abhinanditaḥ. So this is the greetings that Nanda Maharaj and Yaśodā are giving. They're bathing him with their tears. And although he's a grown man, married, they put him on their lap just to embrace him more. And they're remembering. But everyone who saw Balarāma, because Balarāma and Krishna were never separated before, they expected that Krishna was coming right behind Balarāma. So they became confused and distraught. that, where's Krishna? Why haven't you brought Krishna with you? And Balarāma explained, and it was at that time that Nanda Maharaj asked Balarāma, well, how many more demons does Krishna have to kill before he can come back? And then Balarāma told him, well, there's Pandraka, that'll be the next chapter. There's there's Kashiraj, there's Jarasandha, there's Shishupal, there's Dantavakra, and in that way, major impediments to Krishna's returning were still present. And Krishna was going to have to kill them all with the help of Balarāma later. There's Dravida also. He mentioned Dravida, who Balarāma was able to kill. So there was a lot more work before Krishna could return. And therefore Balarāma, he came just to console and to promise to the Brijbasis. Krishna has given his promise. He will certainly return. And this time when he returns, we will stay with you eternally. Now in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not mentioned when Krishna returns. But we have scriptures, for instance, in the very first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the despondency of Vedavyas, why he was not happy after he had composed the 4 Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, even the Mahabharata. He was feeling some lacking in his writings. So his Guru Maharaj, Narada Muni, he came to console him that you've compiled all of the Vedic Shastras, but you have failed to glorify Sri Krishna completely in any one Shastra. So therefore, now you have to write a Shastra that's only in glorification of the Supreme Lord Krishna. And at that time he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, which we're studying every day. But he also he compiled another Shastra, which is quoted right here, the Harivansh. The Harivansh it's an appendix of the Mahabharata, because Vedavyas had received the instruction from his guru, now you only glorify Krishna. So in the Harivansh is pure glorification and description of Krishna and the 2 Vanshas that he comes from, the Surya, the Chandra Vansh, all of Krishna's childhood activities, all of his Dwarka Leelas, everything. So many times in the 6 Goswamis' literatures, and also Vishwanath Chakravarti, they will quote from this Shastra that we don't particularly study, because Srimad Bhagavatam has everything in it, called the Harivansh. And there a lot of information is given to embellish this particular pastime. So after Balarāma came to the home of Nanda Maharaj, they greeted him, they gave him fragrant water to drink, they fed him, they had him rest, and then it was assembly time. Just like we have our morning assemblies and we have our evening assemblies. And our morning and evening assemblies means we're going to sit and hear about the glories of Krishna. So in Nanda Maharaj's palace, that exact same activity was going on morning and evening. And they would have special speakers to talk about the glories of Krishna and Balarāma. So in the assembly, Balarāma, at the request of all of the inhabitants of Braja, they were describing Krishna's different pastimes, what he had done since he had left Braja. And it was the first time Balarāma came back, so he had years and years to catch up on. 19 years in Mathura, then coming to Dwarka, marrying the wives, killing more demons. So there were so many different assemblies for the Brijbasis to hear these wonderful pastimes. So this went on morning and evening. Then, during the daytime, just as we have our activities during the daytime, our different services between our 2 assembly classes, Lord Balarāma, he would wander and he would visit the elderly gopis and gopas' homes, and he would exchange with them, how is your family? He would give blessings to their children, and he would talk to them just as their son. He would meet, that's according to their age, he would meet with them. Then according to their friendship, their sakya, he would meet with his equals, who he used to go out and herd the cows with every day. His close friends, who he would embrace and applaud and joke together with. But he did not go out to herd the cows with his friends during the 2 months that he was in Braj, because this would break his heart, because Krishna wasn't with them. So he would meet them, and he would speak to them, and they would joke together, and they would ask Balarāma, when is Krishna coming back? When can we play again? When can it be just like it was before? Because all the cowherd boys who had enjoyed with Krishna and Balarāma in their youth, they were only staying alive. They were only taking care of the cows with the hope that Krishna would one day return. This was their life, just hanging on a string, that Krishna promised us he will come back. Therefore, we're keeping our lives intact. We're taking care of the cows. Now you tell us, when will Krishna return to us and never leave again? And then, not only that, according to the sakyas and the different types of friendship, so he was meeting all of his friends. And then also, on the third day, Balarāma decided that he would go to see Krishna's beloved gopis. Now, they were not visible to everyone because they were in great distress. They were just together in one place, in hiding. They would stay together, just in separation from Krishna, waiting for him to return. So Balarāma, he went to that place where the gopis were. And when the women are just sitting together, they have their heads uncovered, they're speaking together amongst themselves. And Balarāma entered that place where the women were, where the gopis were. And they were, of course, speaking about Krishna. And in their melancholy state, they saw that Balarāma had come alone. And they asked, when is Krishna coming? When will our life return to us? We're simply living, breathing, because Krishna has promised he would come back to us. So they laughed in a state of melancholy. Sometimes when we're too depressed, we'll laugh at the situation, that here we are, we're so unhappy. When will Krishna come and dispel all of our misery? So they began to ask Balarāma that, does he ever remember his parents? Does he ever have any distress, that he had caused them so much distress? Does he remember his cows? Does he remember his boyfriends? And is there any chance that he remembers us, who gave up everything for him? We gave up our fathers, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, our husbands, our homes, everything, just so that we could please him. Does he remember all the service that we did for him? And then, in their mood of man, they spoke to Balarāma. But now he's with all the city women, and we're just forest dwellers. And these city women are much more intelligent than we are. Are they also being fooled by him like we were? Certainly not. We're just simple girls. But now he's with these sophisticated women in Dwarka. They certainly wouldn't fall to his tricks. But tell us, when will he come back to us as he promised? So they were lamenting to Balarāma. And then Balarāma, he was stunned when he saw how they were suffering. And he told them that if Krishna saw you and how you were suffering in this state, he would be horrified. Therefore, do not worry Krishna will keep his promise to you, and do not be in so much despair. And then he took out all the messages to deliver to each one of the gopis. And he read those messages to the gopis. And then they became pacified. So this was one set of gopis. Now, when Krishna sent Balarāma to Braja, he requested him one thing. He said that all of the young gopis who you accepted at the time of the holy festival as your beloveds, they have been waiting for you to return. And I request you, they have not married, they're just waiting for you. At this time when you go back, I want you to marry them. And Balarāma said, well, this is not the proper time that I just go there and marry them. And Krishna told him, this is my request, that you bring pleasure to these gopis who have been waiting for you for such a long time. So when Balarāma met Krishna's beloved gopis, they said the same thing to Balarāma, that these young gopis, they have spent all of this time just waiting for you to return. And we request you to please marry them now. So Balarāma said, well, I'll have to take the permission of Nanda and Yaśodā, because I didn't come here for that purpose. I came here just to console everyone. So he then went to Nanda and Yaśodā, and all of the cowherd men, all of the cowherd women, they all gave their blessings that yes, this is the correct decision. You should marry all these young gopis at this time who have been waiting for you. So with that, Balarāma, he began his nocturnal leela with the young girls and taking them to a place very far away from where Krishna had his rasa leela. It was a forest that was called, it's past north of Vrindavan, is called Sri Ramagat. There, in the moonlight, in this beautiful forest, by Gandharva rites, he married all of his young, beautiful gopis. And he enjoyed with them for the next 2 months there in the forest. Now that forest, if you look on a map, the Jamuna is quite far away. And that forest, he wanted to enjoy, after dancing and frolicking with the gopis, he wanted to swim with them in the Jamuna. So Varuna, who was very dear and close servant of both Krishna and Balarāma, he sent his daughter. She was the goddess of a particular beverage. Varuna, and his daughter's name is Varuni, and the beverage that she was a goddess of was also called Varuni. And this beverage, which becomes an intoxicant, it's distilled honey. And this honey came out of a kadamba tree. So Varuni came and she presented herself to Balarāma, that my father has sent me to you, along with the Varuni beverage, and you please enjoy it. So Balarāma, along with his gopis, they enjoyed this beverage of Varuni, and Balarāma became somewhat intoxicated. So he calls for Jamuna, that I want to swim in your waters. You please come here. Now Jamuna Devi, she saw the condition of Balarāma having become intoxicated, and no one likes to follow the instructions of a drunkard, so she didn't listen to him. So then Balarāma became angry, and with his plow, he started to pull her to him. And in his pulling, he made many different streams of the Jamuna. At that part of the Jamuna, it's broken up into different streams. So then Jamuna, understanding that Balarāma was very serious, she came and she surrendered to Balarāma. And at that time, the question is, because the gopis of Krishna and the gopis of Balarāma, they don't mix. That's been established already. But Krishna married Kalindi, who was also an expansion of the Jamuna. And now the Jamuna is coming to Balarāma and surrendering to him. So who is this Jamuna? if Krishna is already married to that Jamuna, Kalindi. So it's explained that this Jamuna is the wife of the ocean. Wife of the ocean because all the rivers, they flow to the ocean. And therefore the ocean is considered the husband of the rivers. So this particular Jamuna, she was the wife of the ocean who came and agreed to allow Balarāma to enjoy his swimming pastimes there in the forest of Vrindavan. So these are two different Jamuna personalities, two different expansions of Jamuna. So then we will read further in this chapter how Balarāma, he enjoys with his gopis, and they enjoy together in the Jamuna. And then Balarāma, he hears that Krishna in Dwarka, Pondraka has challenged him. Pondraka, the fool, he has been convinced by his followers that actually he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he has the symbols of Vishnu. And he demands that Krishna give up his symbols of the disc, the club, the lotus, and the conch, because actually Pondraka is the real Vishnu. So Krishna, he laughs at this, and he sends back a message, and Balarāma understands at this time that there's going to be a very big fight where Krishna is going to chastise both Pondraka and the king of Kashi. So after 2 months of giving pleasure to all of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, the elders, his friends, the gopis, and according to the different amounts of respect given to all of these different residents, Balarāma decides that he can't stay any longer. He has to join Krishna's side and again commence with killing the demons who are still remaining before they both can return together to Braja. So that will be the end of this chapter, and we take all this extra information from the commentaries, the Harivansh, and the commentaries specifically of Śrīla Jiva Goswami. Now, Śrīla Jiva Goswami, he wrote a book called Gopal Champu. Gopal Champu is an expansion of the 10th canto, only dealing with Krishna's pastimes, from his appearance to his return to Goloka Vrindavan. And when Srila Prabhupada was living here in Vrindavan, Prabhupada decided that if he were to accomplish the mission given him by his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he could not go empty-handed. And he decided he would make his life mission the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. And as he was printing each one of his first 3 volumes, he was also distributing these volumes. And we have here in Vrindavan, because Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan at that time, he was going to Delhi for the printing work, but he was doing his translation work primarily here in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, we know that there are many scholars of Krishna's pastimes. That's why they live in Vrindavan. If any of us have ever had the painful experience of being outside of Vrindavan, our minds also are always longing, when will we come back to Vrindavan? Even Balarāma, he was willing to give up the association of Krishna just so that he could return to Vrindavan. So there's something very special about Vrindavan, and that is the devotees in Vrindavan. So even when Prabhupada lived here, Prabhupada would associate with all of these great scholars, and he would show them his translations, get permission, discuss particular words. He would go from Goswami to Goswami, getting their ideas for the translation work. So there was one scholar, his name was Shamlal Hakim, and he had a printing press. That printing press still exists here. It's just behind Seva Kunj. It's called Harinam Press. And he was printing his own translations in Hindi of the 6 Goswamis' literatures, because that's what the inhabitants of Vrindavan do. They just go deeper and deeper into Krishna's pastimes and enjoy that with each other. So when Prabhupada brought his books to Shamlal Hakim, he asked Shamlal to, you please be my distributor here in Braja, so that all the scholars here can also get my books. It's the first time Bhagavatam has been translated into English. So he very graciously accepted that, and he was distributing Prabhupada's books. And then finally, he asked Prabhupada one day that, I understand your life mission is you want to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam, but why don't you also translate the other Goswamis' literatures that describe more detail about the Bhagavatam? So Prabhupada explained to Shamlal that I'm going to a Western country. They haven't heard anything about Krishna. They don't even know who Krishna is. So first I'm translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. If I start translating books like Gopal Champu, which is very much appreciated by all of the scholars here in Vrindavan, if I translate this Gopal Champu, they'll become confused. So therefore, I'm only concentrating on giving the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, as Prabhupada was able to translate more and more, he then translated Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Upadeshamrita. He was translating the 6 Goswamis' literature, but because Krishna took Prabhupada away before he could finish all of his work, he wanted to translate all of these books, but the time wasn't there. So therefore, Prabhupada, he recommends in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he wants his disciples to study these books of the 6 Goswamis. And therefore, Prabhupada's disciples then translated these books, such as Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, Kushakrata Prabhu. So these books are there in translated forms for us to get more and more information about the pastimes that are very, very succinctly given by Sukadeva Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he also didn't have much time. So therefore, we give these further expandances of these pastimes coming from the books of the 6 Goswamis. And that's how we get all these details of the conversations between Balarāma and Nanda Maharaj, Balarāma and the gopis, what Balarāma did with the young gopis, why he married them. So we're embellishing these pastimes with the words of the 6 Goswamis and the Harivanks, because that is what the 6 Goswamis were depending upon to give their commentaries on these particular slokas. So we have 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions. Yes, Prabhu?
Mataji, from a year or so, I'm curious to know the correct pronunciation of Braj, whether it is Braj or it is Bridge, because you yourself, when you pronounce Braj,
Yes.
and then Brijvasi, not
Yes.
Brajvasi.
Yes.
So, because so many saints call it, some saints call it Braj, and some of them call it Bridge. So, what's
Yes.
the exact,
Yes.
authentic pronunciation of?
This is
Yeah.
linguistics. The original language is Sanskrit, and in the Sanskrit is Braja. Braja. Then you have the colloquial language of the Brijbasis, and that's called Brijbhasha. And that has a mixture of different languages in it, Sanskrit, Prakrit, and local words that you won't find in any other language. And that language you can only learn by living here in Braja, Brijbhasha. So depending upon what language you're studying, it will be pronounced in different ways. In the Rupa Goswami's books, such as Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava, he will switch back and forth because in Braja, the people would not necessarily speak proper Sanskrit, Devanagari. They would speak the local language, Brij Bhasha, or even Prakrit. So their conversations would be in Prakrit, whereas the slokas that Rupa Goswami would describe the pastimes in would be in Sanskrit. So there's a mixture of the two different languages. One is of Braja, and the other is of Brij Bhasha. So it depends which language you choose to speak. Yes, Prabhu. You have to make up for the few days you missed. You have 5 questions.
What happened to all the young gopis that Balarāma married and spent 2 months with when he went back to Dwaraka? And also, the Brijabasis are the most beloved of Krishna, and it seemed like after 11 years, they were like ghostly people suffering and struggling. You take up Krishna consciousness to become free from struggle and unhappiness, but he makes his most beloved struggle and suffer. What's going on?
Yes. So your first question. The first question, the answer is, when Krishna's gopis said to Balarāma, we want you to marry these young gopis, and after you've married them, when you have to leave and go back to Krishna, we will take care of them. So the gopis who were Krishna's beloveds, they promised Balarāma that they would take care of the gopis that he was going to marry. So that was why they gave assurance to Balarāma that don't worry, we will take care of them in your absence. And then the second question...
Did he see them again, or that was it?
They came back. Krishna and Balarāma came back. And that's described in this Gopal Champu. When they came back, how Krishna also married all of his beloveds as well. Now, about the second one, the misery of separation. According to Lord Chaitanya, that's the topmost ecstasy, the Vipralamba Bhav. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically came to teach us, the Vipralamba Bhav. That of the 2 different types of Bhav, that means love for Krishna, there's the Sambhog, that means enjoying with Krishna personally, and there's the Vipralamba Bhav, and that is enjoying Krishna in separation. And that separation is considered to give more pleasure than the Sambhog. Because when you're separated from someone, you're thinking of them all the time. And by your thinking of them, they're actually there with you. So that, according to, it might appear to be miserable, but the inhabitants of Vrindavan were actually on the highest platform of Vipralamba Bhav, keeping Krishna with them. That's why they say that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, because he was here in his Bhava Roop, because the Brijbasis kept him here in that form of love. And Krishna also said to Balarāma before he left, he said, first you assure them I'm coming back, then you give them my messages. And if even then you can't convince them and console them, you cause my spurti to appear before them. So spurti means when the Supreme Lord gives and just for an instant, he appears to the devotee. And they see him, and then he disappears again. So this is what, it's called spurti in Sanskrit. I don't know what the English translation could possibly be, but it's when Krishna just instantaneously appears before his devotees, and then he disappears again. So that also, Krishna, he had his spurtis for his different devotees, that he would appear before them just to assure them that I promise you I'm coming back, I will come back. All right?
You tricky fella.
Yes, he is. Keeping everyone in suspension.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Why Krishna's return to Vrindavan is not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam?
Why it's not mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam? You would have to ask Sukadeva Goswami that. It is mentioned after the killing of Dantavakra that Krishna returns for some time. Correct? It is there. But then the Goswamis, they go on to give full elaboration of what happens after Krishna returns and how he sends his expansion to continue with his Musal Leela and all of that while Krishna is still in Vrindavan, and he takes them all back on a big chariot, and he promises them that he will never leave them again. So if you want to know what happens when Krishna returns, it's there in the Gopal Champu. But why Sukadeva Goswami doesn't explain it exactly, you know, there are different pastimes that go on in the 11th and 12th canto where Krishna speaks the Uddhava Gita, and when he disappears and takes the whole Yadava clan back to the spiritual planets and back to the heavenly planets. So Sukadeva Goswami is describing, according to his audience, who was Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj was one of the Kurus, one of the Yadavas, and he wanted to know about his dynasty, what happened to them. So Sukadeva Goswami was assuring Parikshit Maharaj what happened to everyone, how the Yadavas were all able to again attain Krishna's association after the Musal Leela, and he was speaking to him as a city dweller and not to the Brijbasis. So his audience is one particular person, and therefore he spoke those Leelas, the end of the Dwarka Leelas, to Parikshit Maharaj. Okay? Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, in Krishna book we see Lord Krishna, when he stole the clothes of the gopis, then he tell, because you prayed to Katyani, I become your husband, so he stole the clothes. So he married that. In which way? I cannot understand that. Can you speak something about that one?
Yes, that was also Gandharva marriage at that time. He married them because they wanted to marry him. So he fulfilled their desires. And then it's described that Balarāma married in the same Gandharva rites all of the young gopis. So these, of course, these are all the Bhoma Leela. These things in the spiritual world, everyone's eternally associating together with Krishna and Balarāma according to their different relationships. But these are the particular pastimes that were manifest here to attract our minds, to give us hope that even we can enter into Krishna's pastimes. Because the different gopis that Krishna married, they were coming from some were coming from the spiritual world, some were the sadhakas who were meeting the eternal associates of the Lord, and they were also able to go back to Godhead. So Krishna, he displays different pastimes according to, again, the audience. And we being the audience, hearing these pastimes, it gives us hope that even we, if we follow the instructions of our spiritual master very carefully, if we study Srimad Bhagavatam, all of these different recommendations, that we also will have the opportunity to enter into Krishna's pastimes. So these pastimes are described in different ways according to who the audience is that the writer is presenting it to.
Thank you.
Okay. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.